If you'd please stand, we're going to go ahead and start with our pledge and our prayer.
Let's pray. Dear Lord, Heavenly Father, thank you for this day. Dear Lord, we thank you for this great country. Dear Lord, we thank you for this county. And just help us now as we make decisions that hopefully will continue to help this county grow. We ask your leadership in everything that we do. In Jesus' name, amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, we're going to go ahead and call the meeting to order. If all of the board members will note, we do have some new added equipment up here that is going to be streaming us live on the web, the little boxes fixed in front of you. So those boxes do not get paused, and you need to be aware that your comments may be streaming live at any and all times. So at that, we will take a look at approving the agenda. Has everyone had an opportunity to review the agenda? Do we have a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Second. We have a motion and second. Any other discussion? If not, all those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? We'll move on to approval of the minutes. As soon as everyone has reviewed, we'll look for a motion to approve the minutes.
So moved.
Do we have a second? Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? All right, now we're going to get into our operational audit responses. I think that Bill sent these out to you last week for review. This is basically a follow-up to our audit from a year ago, 18 months ago. They're going to be returning and looking for our responses on what we've done to correct those various items in the audit. Mr. Bill?
We provided this to you in two formats. The Auditor General uses a spreadsheet, but the narrative form seems to be easier for most to understand. If you look at the documents, there's actually three different colors on the documents that you have in front of you. The finding and recommendation was the Auditor General's original finding and original recommendation. And our original response was in black, and our suggested corrective action was in black. And then for the upcoming return visit, the action taken to resolve finding is contained in yellow. And this is a worksheet for the Auditor General when they return to us, and any of these answers can be addressed by the board, and we felt like it was appropriate for you to have a time to discuss them this morning. So having said that, we can open the floor for discussion.
Well, I guess I will. Now, it looks to me like this is the same questions that we got over a year ago or so. Is that right?
Yes.
And we're giving them pretty well the same responses back.
Yes.
So I'm wondering why they sent this if they weren't pleased with the first one that we give them over a year ago, or what's the deal here? Do we have any idea?
I've never been through this process. I suppose we will see as they come back exactly what their intentions are.
Well, for example, like if you look at the first finding, that gave us the opportunity to share formally. I mean, it's just another part of their formal review process. So that gave us an opportunity to share formally that we sought the opinion of the Attorney General the Attorney General basically ruled in our favor, and that gives us an opportunity to formally respond. You know, I doubt that they would come back and challenge that, when that would, to me, be the next step in the legal process to determine whether or not we were within our rights in awarding that project. So it gives us an opportunity to address anything that we, and how we have responded to it, like the Attorney General's response. I think that addresses a few of the findings and anything else that we have implemented over that period of time.
Do you think that they didn't know about the Attorney General's response before they sent this?
Well, you normally in audits, I mean, it's still a formal process of getting responses from the body politic, I guess you would say. I'm certain that they know about it, but I think that they would still seek our response to it. Ken?
Madam Chair, Donald, the law requires that they come back 18 months.
Yeah.
Every time they perform an operational audit on any entity, they come back a year and a half later for
Yeah.
follow-up.
But what I'm wondering, Ken, is why didn't they just come on back without sending these questions?
I'll try to speak loudly because the batteries, I think, are dead in the microphone. But my understanding from the email, Donald, was it would help them define the scope of what they look at when they come back physically on site, because some of those issues, as the chair pointed out, for instance, there was a finding about not taking Mike Manley's name off the signature card. That'll never happen again. You know what I'm saying? It's a one-time finding sort of thing. So it helped them, or will help them, define the scope of. So you have a finding, you had a management response, you had a recommendation, we had a corrective action, and in the first audit response, we told them we were going. They're the ones that suggested go to the Attorney General. If they agree with you, then we're fine. That's basically what they told us in meeting with them. So we put in there in our initial response back a year and a half ago that we would seek an opinion of the Florida Attorney General. So this is, they come back now and they say, what did you do? You told us you were going to do this. Did you actually do it? So yes, we sought the opinion of the Florida Attorney General, and this is what it said. So it is our response to show them we told you what we were going to do, now we're telling you what we did. Does that make sense? Back then we told you what we want to do to correct the problem, now we're telling you what we did to correct the problem.
Okay, you said management response. Now this email was sent to the board.
Right. That management.
Why wouldn't the board have the response?
The management response, Donald, is what was done a year and a half ago. Just repeated what was already there. It's not a new response. That's what the board approved back a year and a half ago as the management response.
Okay, these answers had to be sent up there by last Friday.
I think so, Bill.
So how can we come in here and say, well, we can just change these answers?
Well, we sent them informing him that there would not have been a formal approval from the board, and that these would be reviewed today.
I mean, I can look at these answers, and to tell you the truth, I don't know whether they're right or wrong. You know, all I'm saying is that as a board, we should have been part of the process before last Friday.
They didn't allow much time, Donald.
Well, the
I don't
answers
remember
are
what
basically the same as they were a year ago.
Well, they are.
So it shouldn't take it didn't take a whole lot of doing to get these answers.
No, but I think the intent by circulating it to the board was that if you had any major objection to the wording of anything, that you bring that to Bill's attention as a board member. But I don't believe there's anything problematic in any of them. I helped formulate and reviewed them. But it's just an attempt to say, this is what we told you we were going to do to try to correct your concerns in the finding, and this is what we did. We told you we were going to seek an Attorney General opinion. We did it. And this is what it said. That's really all there is to it. There's not a whole lot at this stage. They define then the scope of what they want to look at. They may look at finding number one, Donald, and say, you did what you said you were going to do. We're done on that issue. All right, let's look at finding number two. And they will define the scope of what they're going to look at when they come in to do their office work based on these responses. But this is new to all of us. But the main purpose of me coming to the microphone was to tell you that they didn't come back because they were dissatisfied with what we told them the first time. They came back because the law requires they come back a year and a half later.
Any further discussion or questions from board members?
Do we know when they're coming?
They have not noticed formally, but I expect them to be here within the next 4 to 6 weeks.
Okay. Yeah, in our company, we go through operational audits, and they're very similar to this, and everything gets documented every time it leaves their hand to us. Things that we'll talk about and we completely understand, it still gets documented this way, it gets sent to us this way, so that there is no question about what's on the table when you get there. So to me, this seems perfectly normal. Everybody's saying it just seems pretty standard, and it's trying to capture what they're coming down to look at. So.
But I do think it's important to note that the bulk of the most serious audit findings were related around the interpretation of Chapter 159. And we had maintained that we did have the ability to foster and promote economic development by entering into contracts. And the Auditor General had taken a less than even liberal construction of the law and said that everything we do has to be done according to the definition of projects and the manner in which projects are done. And even those that went before the Joint Legislative Auditing Committee, the Auditor General representative said that they have agreed to go before the Auditor General, the Attorney General, to have this issue addressed, and we're good with that. So, whether I don't really know where we go from here, other than we have an Attorney General that has concurred that our interpretation of Chapter 159 is correct.
Well, I think another thing in my perspective to understand is, if they felt that there were serious operational issues that hadn't been addressed or weren't going to be addressed, I don't believe for a second they'd have waited 18 months to come down and address it.
Right.
They wouldn't have waited for their legal obligation to come down and do it. They would have been down here getting things fixed.
Well, not many, but several of the findings had been corrected before they got here because the audit period actually was from the past.
Right.
And as a result of the financial audits that we had been through, we had in fact already taken actions to correct those issues. And as of today, we do not have any outstanding issues as it relates to our financial audits. They've all been corrected, and most of them were corrected prior to them even coming for the operational audit. So I don't expect any of this to be contentious, but we will be open to any and all suggestions we have relative to the manner in which we operate henceforth.
Yeah, I think it's just important. I think there's at least one element in the community that would like everybody to believe that this is a punitive action and they're coming down here to fix us because we didn't get our ducks in a row, and that's not accurate at all. What is accurate is, if we would have had those serious problems that are alluded to by some of these members of the community, they had been here 17 months ago, not waiting 18 months to come down and address it.
Right.
They didn't because they felt, I believe, in my opinion, they felt relatively comfortable in the responses that we sent. If they hadn't, they would have pushed on it right then. They would not wait 18 months.
Well, one other important part of this process, and I have to accept this blame, but we never had a financial audit. When we did have a financial audit, we had to go back and audit 2 previous years before the first year in which we needed to be audited. Well, some of those comments were cited for 3 years with the first audit. When you have repeat findings for 3 years, it forces you to make an appearance before the Joint Legislative Auditing Committee. So, all of that happened, and it is behind us. I certainly hope that as we move forward, we don't have any mistakes. I know that there's a likelihood that we will, but we will do everything we can to minimize any mistakes henceforth.
Any further discussion from board members? Any changes or modifications that you would like us to submit additionally to these responses? All right, if not, we will go ahead and move on to our Energy Florida presentation.
Madam
Yeah.
Chair,
Pardon?
should we have some type of a vote to show that we have seen them?
We can certainly do that, yes.
I'd like to move that the responses as submitted are acceptable to the board and look forward to the, to the response from the audit team.
Thank you. So we have a motion on the floor to approve and acknowledge the operational audit responses. Do we have a second?
Second.
Any further discussion from board members? Any public comment? If not, all those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? All right. Thank you very much. And Mike, we will be ready for you now.
Okay.
Christy, did I get this to you? Hello, Madam Chair and members of the board. Thanks very much for having us again this morning. I just wanted, I'm Mike Aller. I'm Executive Director of Energy Florida, and we're here to give a follow-up presentation regarding the prospective grant application to the U.S. Department of Agriculture regarding the regional task force that we came and talked to about last month. Very briefly, I'm just, it starts with August 2014 is the one, it's the second one on there. I just have the information from the presentation I gave last month in case there were any additional questions. There was quite a bit of discussion last month about the proposal, about the opportunity, and I wanted to have the opportunity to address any follow-on questions that there might be. In terms of a brief update about where this project is in the interim, we put together a pre-proposal a month ago, just under a month ago, to the U.S. Department of Agriculture, which was required at that point to be able to move forward in the process. USDA is still reviewing those pre-proposals. We have not received word from them one way or the other on moving forward with the full proposal, but we do expect that they will be coming back soon, within a couple of weeks, and then that we would have that would give us the opportunity, if the board and the community wants to move forward with a full proposal for this opportunity. And as if you move on to the next slide here. Would give us the opportunity to do a project for up to $2 million over a 2 to 3 year period, and we had put together a pretty, I think, robust project concept about working around value-added agriculture, leveraging the incubator program, and a number of other things that are going on in the community to be able to do that. In terms of what's necessary or what to be considered by the board at this particular juncture, we would like to have the board consider how you might like to move forward on this if we do hear from the USDA, because we have not heard from them yet, but we may hear from them soon. We would like to have as much time as possible to work on the proposal itself once we do, assuming that we do hear positively from the USDA in moving forward to a full proposal. And so I want the board to consider whether you would want to give a contingent approval to move forward with this, and or consider having a special meeting to consider the opportunity if and when we do hear from the USDA, and we will let you know as soon as we hear anything as to whether we move forward with this or not.
I cannot recollect what the face value of the grant ranges are.
It's right up here. It's basically up to $2 million per project for a two to 3 year period.
So
that's federal money, and then they are looking for some match commitment. Depending upon the partnerships that you put together, some of that can be bought down. So, for example, if we partner with and work with the university and the extension service, then the match commitments are reduced.
So the issue before the board involves the necessary funding to complete the grant application if we more or less make this first cut.
Correct.
And you would anticipate those expenditures to be somewhere between $10,000 and $25,000 prior to the next meeting.
Correct.
And we have basically two options as I see it. We either appropriate some money, and I need to seek Ken's advice on procurement in this effect if the board chooses to do it this way, or we wait, and if we get noticed that we have made the cut, we call a special meeting, and at that point you can consider the specifics of the grant and how we want to proceed. This is the 12th of August, and they would anticipate hearing something from the USDA in the next 30 days. My feeling is that if we hear within 10 days of the next meeting, we put it on the agenda and we take it up at that meeting. If they were to hear tomorrow that we had made the cut, we really need to either call a special meeting or have some provision to authorize them to make some expenditures to complete the application if that's the way the board wants to proceed. So that's kind of where we're at, and maybe you could elaborate a bit more on the purpose, for just to refresh everyone.
Absolutely.
The purpose of the grant, why we have it, who originally requested the money, and maybe its intent, purpose, that time.
Right. Yeah. Absolutely. So this was an opportunity which came through from the U.S. Department of Agriculture in association with. If you can actually go back one slide, Christy, it's under something called the Specialty Crop Research Initiative, where there was basically $24 million, which was put in the Farm Bill, which was passed earlier this year, in order to help support the citrus industry and communities that are impacted by changes within the citrus industry. And there were basically there's a series of funding which are going to be coming out, of which this is the first. This is the first year of the program, where they're basically putting together, asking for funding for two types of projects. One type of project is research and extension projects associated with identifying cure for citrus greening and similar citrus diseases. And the other type of program is basically capacity building within communities to help support the economic challenges associated with the challenges in the citrus industry. And we, in this opportunity, it's specifically targeted on the citrus industry, and it's especially targeted within basically 3 or 4 states that are the primary citrus states, of which Florida is the largest. And so we thought this was a wonderful opportunity for Hardy and for the region to be able to make use of some of the investments that you've already made through the IDA and get some additional federal money to basically build some of the infrastructure and the resources around it to be able to support some of the businesses that you would hope to bring to the incubator. For example, the incubator project to do value-added agricultural products, the fill line, and some of the other investments that you've already made, being able to basically build some business support programs around that and use some federal resources from this program to be able to do that. Can you flip forward just one? So the opportunities, specific opportunity is something called Regional Partnerships for Innovation. They give up to, USDA gives up to $2 million in federal money over a 2 to 3 year period to be able to do this, to be able to support local communities in commercializing technology, expanding entrepreneurship and local businesses in targeted areas. You can flip forward again. The timing of this is, as we talked about briefly, was there was an initial call. The initial call went out in the middle of June. There was an initial cut which was made, or initial pre-proposal which was due on the 18th of July. We worked with Bill and some of the team here. Actually, the timing of this was such that it originally came out after the June meeting and closed before the July meeting, so we just went out and put together a pre-proposal for Hardee, working with a number of partners in the community to be able to be eligible for this. Now we're waiting to hear on USDA's scoring of that pre-proposal. If we are accepted to move forward, which I think we have a very strong probability of being accepted to move forward, then the full proposal will be due in the end of September, and then they will review and select in late this year, early next year, probably to start sometime late spring next year in terms of when an actual program would begin that would be funded through this federal program. Move forward one more. So the basic idea of a concept that we'd put together for this was to create what we were calling the Hardee Agriculture Regional Task Force, which will help support business growth, job creation by focusing on what we can do within the community to support value-added agricultural production. Some of these specialty products, organic products, some of these other value-added products, to be able to Keyplex is an example of that type of enterprise that we think would be a great fit for this region and this community. And leveraging some of the existing assets and resources initiatives that we already have, and building the support system basically to support these types of businesses to establish, build, and grow here in Hardee. You can move on to the next. And there are a lot of different partners that would be involved in this effort, from the University Extension Service to the State College, to the workforce boards, to the local school system, a number of the other, the EDC obviously, and the IDA. Move on. And there are a number of specific project activities that would be involved in this. Energy Florida as an entity, we helped build an ecosystem to support business growth in the Space Coast Central Florida region, and we have a lot of good experience in how you set up a program, a project like this, and I think that we have a very good set of tools and a process for how we would go about making use of these resources and doing this. So you can move on. So very, very briefly, we would basically leverage asset map the existing resources that we have within the community, basically try and identify which are the ones that are the most promising, which are the ones that we maybe need some assistance in a specific area, what types of assistance that might be, then go out to the local support network and also support networks that are available statewide, because there are some resources that are out there statewide to help support entrepreneurship, and basically bring in resources and basic consulting support paid for by the grant to be able to support these businesses in their growth and development here in Hardee in the region. And then also at the same time work with the companies involved to help them connect to larger companies, get involved in supply chains for some of these types of products, and really sort of build the market base through that process of connecting them to some of these larger larger downstream market opportunities. Move forward again.
So, Mike, as we kind of work through this process, if we choose to move forward and do the application, do we have the opportunity to kind of tailor, a lot of what you're talking about is fairly broad. Do we have still the opportunity to tailor this down to what we want it to be utilized for? Do we have an opportunity to perhaps tailor this to, just our incubator and working on the value-added ag services that we might be able to do through the incubator, or do we need to stick to what we apply for the grant funding for?
I think that we have some flexibility still. I mean, quite frankly, it depends a little bit on what USDA comes back with. If USDA comes back with acceptance, I think we have some flexibility because the way that the original pre-proposal was written, it was pretty broad, and I think that we could focus on some specific things within that, and still be within the spirit of the original proposal. If USDA comes, accepts it, but comes back with some commentary on what they might like to see, then we would certainly have to keep that in mind as we're building this forward. But as of right now, we have, I would say, if they just come back and say, please bring us a proposal, we have quite a bit of ability to tailor this down more directly.
Okay, and do you know, during the last meeting when you made the presentation, I'd asked about, do you know if we did receive approval, if we would be able to, you used the term leverage our assets. Would we be able to leverage the assets that we've already invested in? I know there has been mention of value-added ag products. I mean, that is what we're doing the incubator for. That's a part of that, the incubator that we're building. And then in addition, other technology applications that would improve agriculture. So would we be able to utilize and leverage the assets we already have, or would it be a new dollar match that we would have to contribute to the match?
Well, the guidance that I have from USDA so far they've said, first of all, they said wait until we get further through the process before we get to those types of details. That was the first thing. That was the first thing that the USDA rep said was, well, first let's make sure that you're selected to get further. That said, as I've had some discussions with others, I'm not sure that there were that many regional partnership for innovation proposals that went in to begin with. So I think our chances are pretty good. But that was the original. Was that the USDA rep wanted to talk about? Was to get into specifics, well, what investments have been made and what might qualify or not qualify once we get through that first round of the process to get to a full application. So that that conversation is to happen, and actually our hope is that if we are selected, it will be with enough time that we would be able to have a good, robust conversation with USDA before the September meeting, and come to you at the September meeting with very specific information and recommendations on what is going to be eligible and what might need to be kind of brought forward if in case there are any new there is a need for any new resources at all, and I'm not sure that there is, but that would be a conversation to be had. Hopefully at the September meeting we'd have some time to work this and have them time to actually get down to the details with Bill and his staff, as well as with USDA, on what are the investments that have been made so far, what might be eligible and what might not be, and on what basis.
Okay. So at this point, we need to pay to play.
I have a couple of questions.
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Pull it up.
As a small citrus grove owner, I support anything that can affect greening. It's on. Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Now I got you down like this. As a small citrus grove owner, I'm for anything that helps find a cure for greening. What I don't understand, Bill, when these people first came to you, it was Energy Florida. Maybe the name is what's throwing me off. They were to help you do a study for some of the stuff on the energy projects that may or may not happen in Hardy County. What's their expertise in citrus, or am I not looking at the big picture? Are they just consultants that will help us put together all these fancy terms, value added and all that stuff, products in Hardy County? I don't understand how we went from energy to...
Well, actually, the state has classified the Department of Energy under the Department of Agriculture. Adam Putnam is the head of the state's energy initiative, and I suspect that a lot of that ultimately has to do with the promulgation of ideas related to energy crops, et cetera, as we move forward over the next several decades. The name of their group is Energy Florida. They do have a fairly good contingency of folks that have aptitude in arenas beyond energy, and they just happen to be, part of, for me, it's a double-edged sword. If we left this opportunity on the table and did not pursue it, and everyone else did or someone else did and we didn't, I feel like we could have been criticized for being remiss and not approaching it. The state and federal government felt like that this money needed to be appropriated to give those of us that are negatively impacted, both from the grower standpoint and from the ancillary supplier standpoint, a way to recover. And that's more or less where we're at.
Well, I understand that, and I think we ought to pursue it. My question is, are these people we need to do that with being energy and not agricultural? Are they just consultants that can do any, give us information or advice on any type of industry, or is it?
Consultants can always give you advice on any and everything. That's what they do.
And at this point, they're the ones with the application in, so we don't exactly have another option if we want to get in on this round.
Mike, you or Mark want to address that point?
Sure, absolutely. Mark has a lot of experience in many different industries. I have experience in several different industries. Mark, you can come forward. Actually, Christy, if you can roll through several slides. Keep going. This is a little bit about our team. This was something, and we've done quite a bit of work on building ecosystems in the Central Florida region. That was an energy-specific project that we were funded